All right, folks, it's time for World Edition. We'll be talking about world news and other things as I get ready to try to pull up those items. And I'm sure I'll be having the guests that will be joining us very shortly, our regular panelists, and all along those lines. But it was interesting hearing Dr. Patmos talk about taking statistics way back when, because I remember taking, and his I think was in the 70s, but I remember that had a couple of things that were my Achilles heel back in college. And one of those was statistics, because I remember coming to UNC and taking a statistics course and a foreign language, because the serious Achilles heel was foreign language and all along those lines. So definitely that was a serious Achilles heel back in the day. Wound up thinking of getting a course and actually completing it in French. I don't think it was Spanish. It might have been French, but it was one of those two foreign languages. Both of them were kicking my backside in the days of college and all along those lines, which would have been the years 80 to 84. So we're talking some 40 something years ago and all along those lines. Still not that masterful at foreign language. Need to do some foreign travels, as I've said on this show and other shows before. And at some point, need to get out and see more of the world. As I've been on one cruise with a friend of mine and all along those lines, and have was raised in the country of Turkey after having been born at Lincoln Hospital. I think I moved there when I was like 6 months old or something like that, and probably would have been there till about 3, as Dad was stationed in the Air Force and all along those lines. And speaking of the Air Force, before I get to some of these news items, and I'm trying to get to the computer and see what's going on in the world, and hopefully Rick will be joining me very shortly as well. But he was saying definitely check on the elderly, as we were talking about heat strokes and things along those lines, because heat is a very real issue. We're seeing it in some of the foreign countries like France and probably even Spain and other places as well. And Dad just recently celebrated, actually this past weekend, his 86. So that's right, he has hit the big 86 and all along those lines. And I, for one, am hoping that he makes it to 90, 100, and even beyond that. But he does look like he's in good health. Actually, we ran into each other at a jazz concert, and that was a great thing, seeing him and his lady love at that particular event. It was amazing women that did this concert, that being Lois Dawson, Nina Freelon, I'm trying to remember Kate's last name, and of course, Lenora Helms. Lenora Helms had this great song that was very unique and all along those lines. I love the refrain. One was about combat boots and glass slippers, because she was talking about how one time she was doing a jazz concert and wound up having to wear something that was unusual when you're dressed in a gown and all along those lines. So that's why the lyric was called combat boots and glass slippers. The other refrain was a French champagne and brown liquor. I'm going to bring in Dr. Sharif. We're going to try to find some things going on in the world and all along those lines, but I haven't done the news headlines like I usually do, trying to get my main computer up and running, but I was just sharing a couple of information based on the medicine show that I just had with Dr. Patmos, and Nick was over there, and Rick Rosner, and I'm sure they'll probably be coming this way very shortly as well. But how are you doing, Dr. Sharif? How is Bangladesh treating you? What news are we hearing from Bangladesh and all along those lines? And we'll get to some of the other news items as I get the main computer up and running. But share a little bit about what's happening in the country of Bangladesh, because many people, as we've said before on this show, aren't even sure where Bangladesh is, even though I know it's in Asia and everything like that. But there is the news coming from that country, just like there's news coming from the United States, the African continent, with its 50 plus countries and all along those lines. I'm trying to remember if it's 52 or 54, but they do have a number of countries in Africa. And of course, there's a number of countries in Asia, Europe, and a lot of people are rooting for their team because there's a bunch of countries that are in the World Cup, even though some of them have been eliminated. I know that Turkey's been eliminated, and I think a couple of other countries have been eliminated as well. But how are things going in your world of Bangladesh, where soccer isn't the big king of sports? It's actually cricket. But definitely, how are things going where you are and all along those lines? So share with us a little bit about what you've got going on in Bangladesh.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your questions, and this is very interesting questions. And Bangladeshi people like football or soccer, what you discuss about. But
Right.
Bangladeshi people like we are not in World Cup
Right.
uh, because for get into this World Cup there are a lot of procedures and other things. Bangladesh did not qualify for that, but Bangladeshi people they like soccer so much. There are a lot of people actually engaged with these things. A lot of people actually engaged with soccer and everything. There are huge amount of football supporters from Argentina. Bangladeshi people support Argentina as well as Brazil and different country like Germany and so on. Definitely, Bangladeshi people like USA and so on. Besides that, I want to say that Bangladesh trying to improving these economic challenging situations. That's why our Prime Minister just visiting Malaysia as well as China. I think that this tie-up will help us to improve the economic conditions after these things. Hopefully, this peace deals in between Iran and USA it will move forward and it will make a very positive impact for these things. And but I'm very interested that how uh, these global communities. I like the idea of Kimberly, that's Department of Peace. So if
Mhm.
USA can develop this Department of Peace idea, I think it will be helpful for country like Bangladesh and small countries like Pakistan and so on. So this is interesting idea. That's why I love Pod TV because Pod TV bring different new idea, new things, and new innovations and hopefully it will be very interesting aspect. So thank you for your question. Then that is my answer. Hopefully all of you will visit Bangladesh. So Rick, what about you?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely gonna get. Well, I was asking him about Bangladesh and everything like that. Hey, Rick, I was trying to get to the news item just because my computer was down there for a second. The main computer. That's why I popped off of
well, you
the
mentioned
medicine show
something
and
the
everything.
previous half hour, which is the temperature. It's hot across the world, across the
Yes.
northern hemisphere, and across the U.S. And you still have you have your dad's still out there around. I don't know
Yeah,
about your
yeah,
mom.
yeah. I just mentioned that during the show. Dad actually just turned 86 on this past Father's Day was Sunday. His birthday was the day before. So this past Saturday, Dad turned 86, and actually on that same day, not as a Father's Day gift, but we just happened to run into each other because I had been told from a friend of mine to come check her out at a jazz concert, and Dad knows that jazz singer as well as the others that were performing. So I ran into him and his lady love, and yes, I do use that term for sometimes. I know some people like that's a kind of romantic, cute term, but he's been together with his girlfriend. They never got married, even though mom was married to him for about 21 years. Because yeah, they got divorced when I was in college, but I think he's been with Linda for about 25 plus years
Well,
and everything like that.
what I want to say is, if you're lucky enough, I'm not lucky enough to still have parents, but if you're lucky enough to have parents in their 70s, 80s, 90s, check
Yeah.
on them during the heat. They may not be keeping up with it. Even like in LA, if you put your parents in senior living, and right now that's running like 10 grand a month, which
It's,
is
it's expensive. It's
yeah,
expensive
but
even here.
even if
There's
you're
a go.
you check on them even if they're in senior living, just because you're paying some outrageous amount per month doesn't mean that they are but they're doing adequate checking during heat.
Yeah, that's very true. We got and I'm here to bring up something about the heat and all along those lines, but we got an interesting critique from our guest on last week because I got an email from them and they said how much they enjoyed the conversation. And David Vine is definitely involved in, I guess some people would say, the peace movement and all in that kind of way. But he observed, and it is a correct observation, he felt that whoever made that statement about Russians, and I'm guessing it was Sasha, comparing them to cockroaches, that was a little bit on the insulting side, and I do know that sometimes our guests, not just on the right but on the left, can be caustic. I think that's the word that I'm looking for and everything like that. But his other main critique was, and I know we've had it before, and I'm trying to change it, is that oftentimes on these shows it is male dominated, and I think he was noticing that there were 7 men. I did point out that Kim came in later, but that was at the absolute end of the show and everything like that. But he was just noticing that the conversation was great, but he wished that there had been more representation, because in the email I got from him, and it was just a short email, it was probably less than a sentence or two, about half a paragraph, but he did observe that he enjoyed being on the show, enjoyed our conversation with him, but he did wish that there had been more female representation. I know we've had females on before, like Gretchen, who's very conservative, Debbie Peterson, who I send the invitation to every week and everything like that, pretty much every day, and others that have been on. Some of them might be busy, some of them might not have liked some of the ways that they were treated. I don't know the various reasons that they've not been back on, but I did tell him that I would love to get more women on, and I would be open to him with suggesting people, as well as me continuing to reach out to the ones that we have. But that was his critique of us, was that it was male dominated, and I've heard others say that same thing and everything like that. So
and we're also we're pretty liberal leaning. It would be nice to get some conservative voices.
Yep, I agree, and that's what I told him. I said we used to have conservative voices. I've been in touch with Shaquille just about. He was bragging about some of his winnings, because we do know that Shaquille is into betting and stuff like that. But definitely, it was interesting. And we're coming back to the news, because like I said,
let's talk about betting for a second, because I've noticed a trend. So there's a saying, you can't beat the house,
right? Because
the odds that the house offers you are, you're paying more than your chance of winning is worth. So if you play long enough, either at a casino or you bet on sports, your money's going to dwindle. And what I've found is that I make a few tiny little bets a month on an online bookie, and lately they've been sending me money for free. Here's some more money to bet on stuff. And the reason is that they hope that this will make me more addicted to gambling, and I'll bet more. So gambling is so lucrative for these companies that they will give you money to bet more, because odds are you will spend more than they give you. I just
just really quickly along those same lines, Rick, and I hate to cut you off and all along those lines, but I have seen, and I think I might have downloaded 1 or 2 of them, but I then quickly undownloaded them because I never got into the games. But I do know that both on your phone and even on television, you will sometimes see these commercials about these apps that claim that if you answer a certain amount of questions and do this and that you can automatically win money. I know one of the famous commercials is that there's somebody that's short on their grocery money, and somebody is saying, hey, don't worry about it, because I think they're at their checkout line, and they're like, don't worry about it, download this app. I forget the name of the app and everything like that. And in a matter of minutes, you can win enough to cover whatever you're in debt for. And I've always wondered, one, how do they do the payouts? Because that would make a lot of companies broke, and I don't know how they're working this. And maybe I'll try to get somebody on connected to one of those things, because I know one has a king as their mascot and everything like that. But DraftKings is one, but that's more of about sports betting. But there's another one that I think also has a king as their mascot as well. But what are your thoughts around these instant money?
I think they all work the same, based on my limited experience.
Right.
If you sign up for a thing where you can win money for free, you do it, you win a little money, and you notice there are options. If you buy more tokens or whatever, you can win more. So the idea, you can do so much for free, but you can win so much more if you buy tokens, and eventually you're buying more than you're winning. I just signed up for Polymarket, which is a way to bet on sports and also current events, all sorts of stuff. I put in $20 and they put in another $50 on top of that. So for my $20, I now have $70. But they're betting that I will make a series of, some winning, but a lot of losing bets, and eventually they'll get their $50 back and more. And statistically, they're right.
And that makes a lot of sense. I want to come back to the heat wave because they just said that France recorded its hottest day as the heat wave impacted Europe. So Europe hit by brutal record-breaking temperatures as the heat wave continues. It's actually got a name, so more heat records expected as deadly Omega heat wave. So it's an Omega heat wave grips Europe, and like I said, those drowning deaths soared in France as Europe buckles in record June heat. And I know we usually think of July and August as being those hot months, but yes, it can get hot in June as well. And right now we're heading toward the end of June because actually July will be a week from today and everything like that. But definitely looks like they are dealing with some serious heat wave and everything in that
No,
space.
I just looked up Omega heat wave. Omega heat wave looks like a heat dome where a thing of a high pressure hot air gets trapped over a city. It's usually what you want is weather patterns to blow across your area and push away the hot air. But
Yeah.
I guess and cities tend to run about 4 degrees hotter than the surrounding countryside because you have streets that capture heat. You got rooftops that reflect heat and
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason they call it the asphalt jungle and stuff like that. If you're in a city, whether it's a small city or a big city, and all along those lines, I know that Nick talks about it to some degree.
$20, and they put in another top of that. So for my sorry.
Yeah, you were having some sort of interference. But Nick, just really quickly, because I know that you're in Spain and you're not that far from the rural areas, because Spain and its cities and rural areas aren't that far from each other. And speaking of that, I know that a lot of times people that are rural oriented, sometimes it can get very hot in those rural areas, but not often because they don't have the asphalt. I mean, they can get hot, but they don't have the same asphalt jungles that the cities do, which is what me and Rick were talking about. But I remember when my grandparents were living and everything, granddad would definitely get up way early in the morning, like when the chickens were crowing. And actually, mom just said she saw a group of turkeys in her backyard because they are oftentimes knowing they're not going to get shot, just hanging out in the backyard and everything like that. But I just remember granddad when he was living, and he passed away back in '79, and grandma passed away in the '94, I believe it was. But I was just wondering your thoughts around this notion of farm life and everything like that, because I don't know if you ever tried farm life, but I do know that my granddad woke up early and was up to all kinds of hours doing farm tasks and even going to the farmer's market and things like that. The big one in Raleigh, he would be like bringing some of his product to be sold and everything like that. But I just wanted your take on the farm life and how the farm life is in Spain, if you talk to any farmers.
No, it's overrated, and basically, the people that are in farms are, for the most part, very uneducated people, and it's because they don't need a lot of education to do a farm. But to be a successful farmer, actually, you need a lot of education.
You need a lot of education.
However, a lot of them are just, frankly, they're just flat ignorant and about the world, and so I'm sorry. I'm just not. I'm not impressed. If I see something
in the U.S., you have to be highly the economic pressures of independent farmers are such that you really at least need to be educated in farming technology.
Correct. Right.
Basically, all your John Deere devices, whether you rent them or buy them, they're basically computers on wheels.
Right. Yeah, and it's a hard business to make a buck in. You'd think it would be easy. You just plant things in the ground and crops come up and all of a sudden you make money, but it is really
it's difficult. And like I said, my grandfather was fortunate to have made some money. He had property throughout Halifax County and everything like that. Not just him, but some of our other family members as well. So he did make a profit off of some of the farming that he was doing, and he was a smart individual. He sent I can't remember if granddad was college educated, but I know he sent all of his daughters off to college and everything like that. But yeah, it was definitely a hard business, but I do think that he was fortunate to make a profit. And yes, we did have some John Deere tractors and things along those lines. And this was the ones before the computer and everything, like the computerized version that's out there now.
Long working hours.
The U.S. American farmers have a suicide rate 3 times the average of the entire population.
Yeah,
I think that them and air traffic controllers are Yeah.
No.
I think them and air traffic controllers are the top in terms of suicide rates, but we can look that
Well,
up later.
if you're a farmer, you got two choices. One is become an
Right.
artisanal farmer and raise some like exotic crops that you can sell at farmers markets for 3 times the heirloom tomatoes. That you sell for 3 times the price of regular tomatoes. Or you just keep the farm, if you're close to an urban area, keep it going long enough that you can sell it off to a developer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where the people can do it. I see Jacoby has joined us. I do have a question for Sasha in a minute, but before I get to Sasha and everything like that, Jacoby, we're just talking about the plight of the farmer and how farmers are having difficult times, and definitely, particularly in the modern era. And Rick was bringing up the suicide rate. I was saying that I have family members that are farmers. I think you have some in the Orange County and Chatham County area. Even though I know you've got a lot of professionals in your family as well, but I knew that there was a rock group. I think they were a couple of brothers and sisters that also were farmers, because I would sometimes see them, and I can't think of their name right now, at the farmers market that is every Saturday during the warm months. I think it starts in March and runs till like maybe September, October at the Durham Central Park and everything. But from your own observations, what have you observed about farmers? Because I think that you have had farm people in your life, and I know that I mentioned my granddad was a farmer, and I've known other farmers as well. But I just wanted your thoughts on modern farming. Jacoby.
I'm still confused as to what we're talking about, the plight of the modern farmer dealing with corporations taking over and fertilizer becoming more and more expensive.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think what everybody recognizes is, yes, it's a tough time right now, especially for the modern farmer, because just like small businesses, they are a small business. And I mean, these big companies come into town, take over the small farms, and take over the big farms. It's just
Yeah, that makes sense. But given the issue I was going to talk to Sasha about and everything like that, there was an article in a publication called The Responsible Statecraft. I think it comes out of London. And it says that Starmer's exit, and you've kind of alluded to it, Sasha, exposes a dirty secret, which is that the UK, meaning the United Kingdom, can't afford the Ukraine war. So they're saying that even the Washington Post reported, we can't stand Starmer, where it all went wrong for Britain's prime minister. And of course, people are talking about Brexit and even its impact. There have been 7 prime ministers in London since the time of so the last 10 years, 7 prime ministers over the last 10 years. But they're even saying there was a demographic slide. So I guess there's been a shift in the population of Europe, and there's also been a 6 to 8% smaller economy than it used to be, and everything like that. But I just wanted your take on this notion, because I know you've mentioned it several times on the show that Ukraine is doing a great job, a very noble job in its fight against Russia, but that other European countries could not necessarily have that same kind of luck because they weren't as prepared, didn't have the drone technology and other technology. So I just wondered, do you agree with what the Responsible Statecraft said, which is that the UA can't afford the Ukraine war?
Okay, there are several questions. Okay, let's take one at a time. Number one, the major reason that he resigned is the Epstein file. Period. Full stop. Done. Number two, as being born in Ukraine and raised there, I'm proud to say that today Ukraine is a superpower in Europe and perhaps in the world. At least if Ukraine would fight Iran, it would do 10 times better than US. US is fighting war of the 20th century. Ukraine is fighting war of 21st century. And in that lies now. Third thing, Ukraine does no longer need any Western help. As they're playing, saying, oh, we need, help us, why not? They don't need American help, they don't need European help. They will be able to help others. They don't need nobody's help. They are extremely strong, resourceful, powerful, smart, and they are defeating now Russia. Russia has no room to hide anywhere, so they will collapse anytime soon. And the West West will come to Ukraine begging for help, and it's going to happen very soon.
Well, speaking of begging for power, and I know you and Ivan and even Jonathan, when he was on the show, talked about it all the time. But Ukraine says it hit a railway bridge to Crimea and is seeking to isolate the Russian-held territory. So I know that this is something that you three analysts, and like I said, I know Jonathan's no longer doing stuff with us, but y'all have been asking for this for years and everything like that. So what took so long, and is this the final blow in the Russian-Ukraine war, this destruction of the Crimean bridge and everything like that? So I'd love to hear your thoughts around that, Sasha, because I just see.
The destruction of Crimean bridge cannot be a goal by itself. It doesn't make any sense. It could be destroyed if Ukrainian army would start a crucial attack on Crimea, but it's not happening because there's no need for that. They just cut off Crimea. Is now an island that cannot be supplied. People will die there in a matter of 2-3 weeks. So why to spend money, time, efforts to burn this Kerch Bridge? By the way, I said it many months ago that maybe it's in Ukrainian interest to keep on Kerch Bridge, because if Ukraine will return Crimea, and that's not going to be the end of the game, they will take also some Russian territories in the Krasnodar region and some others. So then they have a bridge from Ukrainian territory of Crimea in former Russian territories across the Kerch. So this is in fact something to think about.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Sasha, just really quickly, and I'm going to leave you alone. And I know that Rick probably got other questions as well. But coming back, not so much Russia, but Canada and everything like that. There was a Montreal shooting suspect that was identified as a 24-year-old from Alberta. And there was a manifesto laden with incel ideology linked to the Cote Desanegas shooting and everything like that. But even the Canadian police are warning of possible copycat attacks after that deadly shootout in Montreal. We don't hear that much about mass shootings from Canada the way we hear about it from the United States and everything like that. So I'm just wondering, are you concerned that there might be these copycat attacks the way that some of law enforcement is saying, and that there might be an uptick in shootings in Montreal? Because I know that it's been a major issue, gun control in the United States, but we don't really hear about it that much from Canada. I just wanted your take on this particular shooting and whether it will impact other people that might try to do copycats.
Unfortunately, this is a cost of living in democracy. Sometimes innocent people will be killed, and it's going to happen at some point. And there is nothing you can do about it. Accept it and pray for the people who were possibly died.
That makes sense. Hey, Rick, I saw that the Japanese Emperor Naruhito and the Empress Masako are visiting Belgium. So apparently they're going over there to Belgium. So the brilliant Belgian royal terriers were featured at last night's Japanese state banquet and everything like that. So I know that you've been following to some degree, even though your daughter's in the European theater, some of the things that Japanese and the Chinese folks are doing just in your own reading and everything like that. So I'm just wondering your thoughts, if you have any, about this state visit.
No, I have no thoughts. Our kid and her new husband, I think, are going to Japan to see it. And my wife said, "Can we join you?" And our kid said, "Nope, sorry, it's our honeymoon." So yeah, you don't want your parents along on your honeymoon.
No, you don't want your parents.
I want to go back to 7 prime ministers in England in the past 10 years, 6 in the past 7 years. This is a problem with Western democracies, is constant negative messaging on social media. I always think back to when my dad was my age and the messaging that he got, and he was a small businessman in a little town, Boulder, Colorado. He was not online. Online didn't exist. It was just, you get the newspaper in the morning, then he'd get the evening newspaper, then he'd look at half an hour of national news maybe, then he'd talk to people, who just walked by his store. But it wasn't constant negativity. If I go on Twitter, it's hundreds of messages attacking various political stances every day, and that poisons people against political leaders. Now, the U.S. has been unlucky enough to, our current guy is awful, but even when they're not awful, if you look at a graph of the approval of presidents since they began polling 20 years ago, every president, whether they're good or bad, goes down a little bit in approval because the messaging gets worse and worse. And this is true in England too, and they can't keep a prime minister because people are predisposed to hate whoever is in charge.
It's interesting you say that, Rick, because they're talking about the views of the presidents, and we had that presidential poll in the early days of this network and all along those lines. And I told y'all that one of my latest projects at the cultural center that I work at is going through our storage room and finding all kinds of treasures. I mean, I found records, I found plaques from some of our past leaders, I found an award from our governor that was given to the center that were just sitting there in storage and all things along those lines. But one of the books I found, because some of these are books that people came and were speaking at the center, because the center is also known for book talks and everything like that. But I think that this was just somebody's personal book, but it was a book about Jimmy Carter. And at the time, they were trying to paint Jimmy Carter as the worst president and everything like that. So I forgot the title.
I know conservative people who think Jimmy Carter was the worst president in U.S. history.
Right.
But let's go back to his predecessor, Richard Nixon.
Right.
Nixon was, people were very skeptical of Nixon. He had a reputation for kind of being awkward and creepy and sneaky. Even so, when he ran in 1972, when he was running for re-election, he won, I think, 49 out of 50 states, even though his reputation was terrible, because people still believed in political leadership.
Yeah, no doubt about that. But yeah, that maybe we'll bring back that poll and see if we can get some of the conservatives back as well, because it was a fun show that existed for a series of weeks and everything like that. And there's probably some new judgment on who the worst president is. And maybe, I think at the time, I want to say Biden won the contest and everything like that. And with Trump,
Biden was a completely run-of-the-mill president.
Right.
He was, a strong average president. Presidential historians rank him as 14th or 19th best out of 47 presidents, though you'd probably have to knock him down a few notches after what happened in his last year as president, where he screwed up the debate and had to drop out of the election, and that cost the Democrats dearly. But in terms of how he ran the country, he was pretty freaking average, yet MAGA people think he was the worst president in history who destroyed America, which is not based on any kind of historical analysis. It's based on them being online all day getting propagandized.
Yeah, they're getting propagandized and everything like that. I know you brought it up, I think, on Dr. Pappas' show in the past and everything like that, but they're saying that, and I don't know how dangerous it is to humans, but maybe you can tell me, and everything along those lines, but they're saying that bird flu has reached the last free continent, and they're asking, can we, according to one of these science magazines, can we stop its spread? So Australia is wrapping up bird flu testing as a second state in that country is reporting their cases and all along those lines, but thousands of baby seals are died on two remote.
Right, so there's the bad thing about bird flu is it gets into cows. It'll
Right.
kill a cow. The good thing is it's really hard for a person to catch it.
And that's what they're saying. So they're saying the Tasmanian devils, swift parrots, black swans are the animals that are at risk if bird flu takes off in Australia. And I don't know how many humans are walking around with a Tasmanian devil as their pet. They might be having swift parrots as pets, but I can't see a lot of people trying to have a Tasmanian devil as a pet and everything like that. Because I imagine that's how
the trouble. We learned this with COVID. The trouble with viruses is that they have terrible quality control. Every time somebody gets sick, that person is a little kitchen where they're cooking up a new batch of virus, and the cooks are sloppy, and the batch that cooks up in your body is almost certainly going to be slightly different than the batch that infected you. And so the
Hey, Nick.
concept is that if enough animals catch bird flu, eventually there's going to be a strain that infects humans more easily, and then you've got big trouble.
Hey, Nick, I know you follow the Chinese websites and everything like that, but apparently earlier today, China detained the 2 Japanese on suspicion of smuggling, and Xi is pressuring Takeshi by throttling key mineral exports to Japan. So apparently they detained 2 Japanese nationals suspected of smuggling banned goods. So are we about to have a trade war between Japan and China? And what are you hearing about this relationship? Not just that one, but other Asian relationships in your studies of those Chinese Facebook pages that you are constantly monitoring?
I hear nothing about that. The only thing I heard about today was the Ukraine war and Russia. Apparently, the Ukrainians have bombed the oil fields twice now in Moscow, and all of a sudden, the Muscovites cannot ignore, and Putin can't get away with, oh, we're doing really well over here, because they have these huge black smoke all over the city of Moscow, these fireballs all over Moscow. Somebody said they think it's the end of time. So the Ukrainians, with their drones, have broken through Moscow's defensive systems and have blown up a lot of the oil refineries. And finally, for the first time, the Muscovites, who support Putin,
Well, I know Ken
are
talks a
starting to
lot about it.
realize that maybe their leader lies to them, saying, hey, everything's under control when it's not. It also shows how vulnerable Russia really is to strikes. I mean, the thing is, they portray themselves, oh, yeah, we got this big giant dome, protect ourselves. That's the reason I said if they got into a nuclear war, they would lose, because they really don't have any defenses. Right now, they probably have less defenses than ever. And I just don't get Putin, because if this continues, it's going to look really, really bad for them, with oil being smattered all over Russia. But no, we haven't had boo of China. We've seen a lot what's going on in Ukraine.
I would
Yes,
like to ask a question. So how come Ukraine can mutilate Russia, Moscow in particular, which is a great superpower, it's a nuclear superpower and all that stuff. And here is United States, which is a superpower and nuclear superpower. And anything, they are scared of touching Iran. And in fact, they're capitulating to Iran and they're prepared to run away from Iran. How does it work? I don't understand.
Well, it's pretty easy to understand, Sasha, since you've answered your own question in previous shows. It's called drone technology. In other words, 10 years ago, we were filming in Las Vegas. The Ukrainians came in with these drones. They were using for farming purposes all over the Ukraine. They started developing a big technology in drones. Well, what they did is reposition them in warfare. And so now all of a sudden, the drones have become really one of the key factors in terms of, like you said, modern warfare. And they're able to send hundreds, if not thousands. They said they can manufacture like 100 a day.
7 million drones by the end of this year.
Yeah, and so
19,000
this new
a day.
technology, so this new technology is something that the United States has not developed. Remember, we're into big, sophisticated weapons, big aircraft carriers,
$500 billion weapons.
Yeah, but by the way,
it's
Sasha,
a money laundering, Nick. Don't you understand? You're being
it's
taken.
big.
No, you're
I
not.
understand.
American people are being taken to clean
It's
their
big and it's
Pentagon
big and
show.
expensive. Okay.
And then comes the wars, you cannot defeat anybody. Nick, do you remember since 1945, at least one little war that America won? No, America cannot win wars. They can spend money pretending that they are going to win the wars. They have to be prepared. They now ask $80 billion to fill this coffers of Pentagon. My God, when I saw pictures of lobster and steak dinners, what they're ordering in Pentagon for their stuff. That's where the money goes. That's what's happening with the
Yeah.
money. Stop doing this.
They need to stop. They need
It's
to stop doing
big,
that. But
expensive, and inefficient. The thing is, what they're showing about drone technology, it's very inexpensive. It's very high tech. Like I said, we're good at precision because remember they're using GPS. They even said they were using the Russians' own guidance system to guide the missiles into Moscow.
but I've got a question for both you, Rick
the
and
thing
Nick.
is that we've got the upper hand on this right now.
But hold on a
and
second.
this
I've got a
is
question
gonna
for
be a lot
both
of
you
problems.
and everybody on the panel and everything like that. Because drone
Sure.
technology is very important. It is definitely impacting wars and all along those lines. But I can tell you that it is also very accessible. You talked about how many are being manufactured. I mean, I would just, as y'all know, I get around by mass transit. I don't hide that and everything like that. And I heard two gentlemen that were talking about buying drones. I think one of them might have been the bus driver. So it seems like it's very easy to get a drone, even a drone that is maneuverable and is able to do a lot of things, whether that's delivering packages, whether that's delivering war equipment and everything like that. So I guess the question I've got for all of you is, isn't it very accessible that anybody can get a drone? Because like I said, I've heard people that are talking about getting some very efficient drones from their Amazon or their local stores, not just the ones that are being developed by the military. So it seems like drones are easily accessible.
Yeah, they have them here to deliver food. I mean, the thing is, the problem with drones is they're here to stay. The problem with the military is they have, at least U.S. military, hasn't come to grips with that they're more cost effective than building a huge bomb. The problem with the huge bomb is they're very expensive. They can deliver the payload once. If they're intercepted, you lose a lot of money. These drones are very inexpensive. If you lose one, you've got 1,000 of them behind it. And so the thing is, it drives the Russians crazy because they're going to spend $55,000 to shoot down a $500 drone. And then there's 20 of them that comes at them and they're going like, what are we going to do? We don't have enough interceptors because they have these big clunky interceptors. Right. So right now, Ukraine actually has what I would call the upper hand because no matter what Moscow does, those oil refineries are right now burning. And they can what they did is they showed Moscow, we can do a lot more than that. We just hit your oil refineries twice, but man, they could hit frankly anything.
No, they can hit performance halls, they can hit a number of things like that. But Rick, have you thought about getting a drone? Because like I said, these bus drivers, and they're not that expensive. Like you said, you can get a good drone for a couple $100.
I have no need for a drone.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Unless you're there, we had one as a toy for a while. You can buy them as toys, mainly because you use them for photography purposes.
And that's what most people use them for. Because I know my festival people use them.
And you take pictures. A lot of the movies today are using drone technology to take pictures.
Just movie you see, what used to be a jib shot that would cost you, $50,000. You have your drone person throw up a drone, you get a beautiful panning shot across the countryside for a few $100.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Hold on a second. There's a lot of people that are using them for festivals. I know that I'm involved in the festival world, and a lot of times they'll go up in the drone and get a festival's sky shot, and that used to cost, like you said, used to be the networks would do it with their helicopter, but now they can do it with a simple drone shot, and some of those shots are wonderful and everything like that. You even see it in sports events. I'm sure there's drone technology in the World Cup and everything like that. So a lot of people are using this drone technology to cover things that are outside, whether that's a fair, whether that's a festival, whether that's a sporting event, or a number of other things as well. I do want to get to another story that involves the Trumps, and I'd love to hear Sasha's thoughts around this, but there is a country that Kim talks about a lot, that being Albania and everything like that. But the Albania prime minister says, I'm not the godfather. That's his exact quote. And the luxury Kushner project is colliding with Albanian discontent. So a lot of people are protesting over there because they do not want this Kushner-backed luxury resort, which is going, and there's even talk of this being like a whole corruption scandal and everything like that. So Albanians are protesting that real estate deal. What is y'all's take on this? Because it is tied to Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, and we know that they find the Trumps a lot of ways to do deals, and some of the deals are more favorable to them than they are to others that are involved in the deal. But what did y'all say?
Kushner's not a great, he's not a genius at business. His dad had to donate $2.5 million to Harvard to get him into Harvard because his grades weren't up to par in his test scores. Now, Kushner made a terrible deal on a building in 666 Fifth Avenue. He overpaid for it and was going to lose his ass to the tune of hundreds of millions of bucks. Then his father-in-law gets elected president. Suddenly he gets a good deal to sell off that building. And then somebody published a graph of Kushner's wealth since Trump got elected the first time, and he's gone from being worth not a lot to being worth a couple $100 million. All those deals he makes, and he's behind the deal to buy this Albanian resort island and develop it, which is pissing off Albanians because they don't want this carpetbagger coming in there. But yeah, he's the guy who uses his leverage, his political connections, to make deals that net him tens and hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, speaking of leverages and everything like that, I know there's been talk of AOC being a presidential candidate. There's talk of Pete Buttigieg. I'm talking about from the Democrats. But is there a new player in the game? Because apparently in New York there was a clean sweep for Mamdani-backed candidates in the New York Democratic primary. So the Brad Lander, Claire Valdez, the Dana Lisa Avella Chevalier all won their Democratic primaries. And of course, some people are saying that is in New York, they're reeling after a quote unquote socialist earthquake and everything like that. But I just wondered, is this making Mamdani a potential leader in the national picture? I know that
he's a very charismatic guy who seems to be doing a competent job with the city of New York. He's one of the few political leaders that people seem to naturally like. Can that footprint be extended nationally? Probably not, at least as long as he calls himself a socialist. But
I think an AOC, Mamdani, or whoever's the guy, Peter Buttigieg's ticket, any of three of them will seal the fate of the Democrats' doom of being the president. None of those will win.
Okay,
they're all losers.
You mentioned three people.
They're like if you ever play poker, you're holding the 4 of diamonds, the 3 of clubs, and the 2 of spades. You have a horrible hand. The best thing to do if you have that hand, fold and find somebody else. But this is typical.
You mentioned
liberals. They think you're going to win on that. You're not going to win on that ticket. You're going to lose.
Mamdani, AOC, and Buttigieg are 3 smart people.
It doesn't matter how smart you are.
They might be smart enough to not try for national office.
No, they will, because their egos are bigger than their brains. All of them, if they have a shot, will go.
Hold on a second. We need to hear from Jacoby.
All of them, I can guarantee you. Where's the betting line? I'll be all in on them losing. They're all losers. The national.
Hold on a second. Let's hear from Jacoby.
Sure.
Hold on. Let's hear from Jacoby.
The problem is you guys are both missing the whole point.
Okay.
Trump wasn't the smartest guy. Trump is, he's proven that out. He wasn't, he's unqualified for the position. People voted for him because they saw him, quote unquote, do things. And so what's going on the Democrat side is the fact that Mamdani is seen as actually talking about issues that people want to hear and also acting on those issues that people want to get done. So that's why people voted for Mamdani and are behind AOC and so on and so forth. So when you're talking about going on a national stage, the fight that people have wanted, the actual, and this is what I've said multiple times, but I don't know why people haven't listened. This is being proven. The Democrat Party at this moment want fighters. Right now, they don't care that the name socialist is there. That's a scary boogeyman that people try and throw out, but nobody is scared of the scary boogeyman anymore. I mean, if you look at what went on with Donald Trump raped women. They didn't care about that. So you have Donald Trump meeting with and having dinner with Nazis. Didn't matter. That's why Graham Plattner is doing just fine where he is. Plattner had a tattoo that people are saying was a Nazi tattoo. But because of what he is doing and what people are seeing him do, they don't care about that as much. They want to fight back because all they feel is Donald Trump's corruption, Donald Trump ruining the actual United States. The reflecting pool is a prime example of that. I mean, and him saying that, well, it's some burglar. No, people want people to call BS. And that's what the Democrat socialists are doing. They're calling BS on this stuff. They're saying it's dumb. And this is what we need. And they're offering an alternative. So, yeah, you can cry and say that, well, socialism, boogeyman, socialists, they hate socialists. It's not going to change the fact that right now people want a fighter. And that's what these individuals are showing, some type of fight that they want.
Good. They get to fight again and they get to lose again. In
Well,
other
speaking
words,
of losing,
fighting doesn't necessarily mean
Hold
you
on,
win.
Nick.
The best
Just
thing
real
to
quick.
do, if they're
Keep
smart
saying-
and they're not,
Nick,
is to
you
get
keep saying-
somebody
Nick,
who's center of
hold on,
the
Nick,
road
hold on, Nick.
who can
You
lead the
keep
country.
saying
But
this is where
because
you're not listening.
you're delusional,
You're not
that you
listening,
think that
I
everybody
just
thinks the
told
way
you
you
why.
do,
Nick,
and they
let me
don't,
point
you're
out
going
to
to
you-
lose
let me
again.
point out to you
So get
something.
ready for President
Let me
Vance.
point out, no,
President
nobody
Vance.
wants Vance
Because
because
nobody's going to vote.
you're not
Nobody
listening. Nick,
who's
you're
middle of
just
the road is
saying
going to vote for
boogeyman and all
AOC.
these
Nobody's
words
voting
again.
for Mandami,
Nick, you
and
just got
nobody's
to
voting
listen.
for Peter.
Yeah, everybody's
They're
asking.
gone.
Nick, let me
They're
point out
they're
to you.
gone.
You went straight to this whole loser thing,
Ah.
the whole talking point.
Why
stuff.
do you
Again.
keep
And
putting
what's
up
ironic
losers?
about the whole crybaby thing that you're doing, you're living in Spain.
I'm not crying.
You're
The
living in
Republicans
Spain.
won.
You're living in Spain, and that is actually more socialist than what you're talking
So
about and
what?
crying about. So please, when
No,
you're saying
I'm
this
just
stuff,
telling you the way it
please,
is.
so
I
please,
told you
you're
Kamala
not
was a
telling it the way
horrible
it is.
choice, and she
You're actually
lost.
just putting
You
up
were
talking
delusional.
points
You thought
because you ran
Kamala
to
was
a
going to
country.
win.
You left.
I'm telling
this
you, you got
country-
three losers
Nick,
there, buddy.
Nick, you left this country to run to a country that Mandani would be elected in.
Oh, we
That
have Pedro.
Mandani
We don't know
is
if we
actually
want
advocating
Mandami or
in
whatever
some
that
of the
guy's name
actual
is.
policies. So therefore, you're sitting here saying contradictory things, and
I'm
you
not saying
actually
contradictory
did
things. I'm just saying you got
If
losers
you were
there.
so
Well,
adamant and so wanted to stand on principle and business, you
It has
would
nothing
stay
to do with
here
principle of
and
business.
fought
It's
for
winning and
Trump the way
losing.
that you're
Hey,
saying.
Nick Kentotobi, hold on one
Yeah.
second, just really quickly,
Nick
because I
is
think Kim
right.
joined us.
Nick is right. It's all
Yes.
at the end of the day, it comes down to who won or lost. Nick is 100%
Yeah,
right.
who cares
It had
about
nothing
who
to
won?
do. I mean, and you can see that's the result. The outcome and result is who won or lost. We all can look at, Kamala had answers. Kamala knew and had direction. It wasn't all just a whim on everything. Buttigieg, nobody really looked at him as a true candidate, and he did the math on stage. He literally did the math on stage. Nobody even noticed because there were other candidates, but at the end of the day, Nick is 100% right.
But that's
the-
what you're
The
missing.
only
Kim, is
thing
the
that
con-
happens is who wins or loses.
Exactly.
Now, when
Yeah, I mean, and Peter
talking about-
Buttigieg
what do
may
we
be
do?
the
not
smartest person
talking
in the
about
world, but he ain't
Buttigieg.
going to
We're
win the
not
election.
talking about Kamala Harris. We're talking about last night.
No,
And if
you're
you're
talking
going
about
on
your
this- wait,
delusional
Nick,
dreams.
Wait, Nick, hold
Lord.
on, Nick. Kim
what happened
just-
last night?
Kim
The
just pointed
socialists
out-
won in New York. The socialist candidates all won in New York.
That. Oh,
We're
yeah.
talking about-
The
And you're
socialists
saying-
win in
and
California.
hold
Who
on.
cares?
Nick, now you're running away
They win in
from
New York.
what
duh.
Kim just pointed to you. Kim just said Nick is right because it doesn't matter about all that stuff. It's who won. Who won last night, Nick?
They won in New York, but New York is a
Nick,
socialist city,
Nick,
so it doesn't
Who
matter.
won last
Hey,
night?
listen, the Republicans won in Utah Jacoby. The Republicans won in Utah. Do you know the Republicans always win in Utah, Jacoby? I don't know if you know that. And the
I do.
Republicans won in Idaho. The
It's a
Republicans won in
highly
Idaho.
religious
We
state.
should have all the presidential candidates come out of Idaho because they win there.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on a second, because I do want to get to.
Stop
Hold
the
on.
solutions.
Hold on. Everybody, hold on. Because I do want to get to one other issue before we get ready to wrap up the show, because it was a very important House bill that passed, and I know that Rick has brought this up before, and I love to hear folks' thoughts around this. But the House passed a housing bill, because we know housing is a major crisis, and they passed a big housing bill with bipartisan support, not one party or the other. And now we got to see if the president's going to pass the bill and everything like, because even 5 Republican senators there were 5 Republican senators that voted against the bipartisan housing affordability bill, but most of the part, even the Republicans voted for it as well. So what is y'all's take on this housing bill?
Well, so
Will
tell
Trump
me
actually pass it?
what did the bill do? What did the bill do? Does anyone know?
It's supposed to be the largest housing affordability bill, so I'm thinking it is
bill-
giving break.
Good. Well, devil's in the details. Give me
Just
some details.
read
What
it.
did
Yeah,
do?
read the.
So-
we're gonna have to read the bill.
What did
That's-
it do?
So
You
the
know,
bill was.
I hate
You
it
have
when
to
Congress
read the
passes a
bills.
bill.
Just tell everybody to tell us what the bill did. Just so we're supposed to tell us what the bill did.
So
Well,
you
Rick
know,
is
they
gone.
passed a big,
Usually he
beautiful
pulls that
tax.
up. But
So supposedly the bill is supposed to bar individuals from buying up buying
the big
land.
market.
Yeah, the taking to the big market renters. Basically, it's supposed to bar individuals from doing that, from doing what they've been doing, where kicking people out. Gentrification is supposed to be basically what it's supposed to do.
Well,
Ignore. But that's not going to happen, and it's not going to get signed.
So it's to protect a lot of those things. But right now, the birthright citizenship is on the table. I was watching a lot of the Senate review committees yesterday. There were a lot of things on the table. And so birthright citizenship, they said, oh, it's not going to be about retroactive. It's going to be proactive, forward. But that's not true. It has a retroactive date if it's passed of January 2025 when Trump became president. I think that he's probably got a few people targeted, and it's very important for him to have that particular date. So do not believe it. Like Nick said, the devil's in the details. Read the act.
Yeah, read the details and everything like that. But just really quickly, come back to that.
Happened is they're closing up the Supreme Court libraries in the states.
I
They
saw
are
that.
literally taking the books out of the libraries and locking them away and banning people from being able to browse the books. And I don't know. I mean, I'm a little upset about this because I feel like I paid for those books.
Yeah, you should have access to those books and everything like
But
that.
they're
But just
locking
really-
up all of the law books. All of the legal books are being locked away.
Well,
Yeah,
they
they just
moved
kinda
that
locked
to
those
North
out and everything
Carolina
like that.
State.
The
No
birthright
public
citizenship-
access.
the
Just
birthright
really quickly, because I want to come back to the
citizenship-
housing bill, so I can, because I did look it up. I did the Rick thing, but the
Okay,
bill
let's
aims to
get about
tackle America's housing affordability crisis primarily through encouraging more supply, including of manufactured homes, and through encouraging local governments to reform their zoning and permitting restrictions. The bill also includes a first of its kind limit on private equity by prohibiting large investors from buying single-family homes, which is what I think
Yeah,
Jacoby was
So
referring
another
to.
thing I watched last night and till very wee hours of the morning is the Lumbee Nation is moving forward with some positive movement. I mean, I have to admit one thing Trump did do was sign an executive order that's been sitting on the table for 30 years. I know a lot of Lumbees here in North Carolina. I've been good friends with many of them, and I have always supported their mission to be considered, a human being in their own country, and they haven't been. And so now things are moving forward with them, and maybe we can get some of them to come on our show and talk about what that movement is.
To your point, Kim, my cousin is a member of the Hiawatha Pony tribe, but when I saw her as my
We were
aunt,
just talking about
when I
that last night.
when I saw my aunt at when I saw her at my aunt's burial, she told me that she could put me in touch with some of the Lumbees. So hopefully I'm gonna get some of them on. So I'll talk to
friends with
Verna and see if we
council.
can't get some of them on.
I'm friends with some of the council members, and I saw them last night on a podcast, and I go, why are they not talking on our show? the podcast was good. The information was good. The show was kind of would like drop a little bit, like they wouldn't have a lot of talk going on. So I think that they would get more talk from us because we would have different questions for them. But the Lumbees are finally being recognized as, a nation in our nation. I think in 1885, the act was put in place. The last big act for Native American Indians and for the Lumbees was 1885. And then, later they were allowed to vote, but not the women. Women weren't allowed to vote until later. So, yeah. Oh, hello. We just got our rights in the 1900s, Nick. I'm not.
And Sasha, just really quickly, because I know we're ending and everything like that. I think that I got an email from Jim and you that he is not available, so we're doing a rerun on Modern Investment. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And while we are doing the rerun, I'm going to tell you something quite disturbing happening in the market. There are huge IPO happened by a Korean company on July 12, Hansen's, and the company is much bigger than Micron Technology, and at the same time much cheaper. So there will be a lot of money leaving U.S. stocks like Micron and others. They will migrate to much cheaper and bigger at the same time company from North Korea. Now, remember that there was a SpaceX IPO. There will be the OpenAI IPO and many others. So the money right now, before market will completely collapse into nothing, they are trying to extract as much money from U.S. people. The suckers born every minute. There are hundreds of million U.S. suckers who hold the money, and the money has to be taken by anybody. It's lost in war in Iran. It's nothing on the international stage. It's reduced to nothing, a laughing stock. So please, save your money. Get out of everything what you are holding, because there will be a payback time in a matter of just a few weeks. It's not going to last a year, or maybe next year it will be situation better. No, it's nothing will be better. It will be from worse to much worse. Remember that.
Right.
Sounds good and everything like that. I know we're wrapping up. Just really quickly, if you want to go and move back to the United States, I just found the 10 wealthiest suburbs in America. There was an article in MSN, but it says that if you really want to come, you should move to Scarsdale, New York, because apparently they boast an average household income of $612,591 as of 2024, and Scarsdale home is worth $1.7 million as of April 2026. Other places, and I know you'll love this, Kim, are West University Place, Texas, where the average home is worth $1.7 million. Ryan, New York, Los Altos, California, not that far from Rick and everything like that. Paradise Valley, Arizona, University Park, Texas. So there are a couple of places in Texas that are on the list and everything like that. But that's the top 6 that I'm seeing. I'm sure that if I go down further, there's some other ones that are listed.
North Carolina's starter homes for young people are starting at 380. So that's a ridiculous starting mark when you're graduating from college. But the market is out of whack, and I think Sasha's right. Payback is coming, and I think we're going to see a crash. I think we're going to see a crash.
The other, just to cover them real quick, the other 4 are Alamo, California, where it's 2.6 million. South Lake, Texas, where it's 1.3 million, the home value. of McLean, Virginia, which is the closest to us, and that's a affluent suburb of DC and everything like that. Apparently it's the home to diplomats and spies, and the home prices there average 1.8 million. And the last one is Orinda, California, which is a San Francisco suburb. So it looks like if you want to move there, those are the ones that they say are the best places if you're trying to live a certain kind of lifestyle. But on that note, we're going to get on out of here.